Welcome to Short Stories. Today's story is based on one of Mozart's greatest operas, The Magic Flute. This is a big story, so I've decided to split it into two videos. To understand this tale, you must first learn a little about the Freemasons. The Freemasons, or just Masons, is a fraternal organization that traces its lineage all the way back to the 14th century, when guilds of stonemasons began to organize. Due to its secrecy and religious and political views, the Freemasons have been the targets of suppression and criticism for centuries. To this day, the Catholic Church prohibits members from joining the group. Additionally, many famous individuals have been members of the Freemasons, such as George Washington, Edwin Buzz Aldrin, and Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart. Because of this, a lot of conspiracy theories have popped up over the years. Some people still believe that the Freemasons secretly control global politics. The influence of Masonic ideas is evident in The Magic Flute. There are a lot of references to ancient Egypt and mythological imagery. The number 3, a numeral with symbolic significance to the Freemasons, also pops up quite a bit. But perhaps the biggest clue to this story's Masonic roots is its overall message, the superiority of enlightened rationalism over emotional nature worship. This story has been modified from its original version. It has been formatted to fit this screen. Vocabulary: beefcake, beefcake. Many consider Dwayne Johnson to be a beefcake. Personal effects, personal effects. The police frisked me and took my personal effects. Quest, quest. King Arthur was on a quest for the Holy Grail. Reason, reason. The Enlightenment emphasized the importance of human reason. Restraining order, restraining order. The court issued a restraining order on my ex-husband. Steadfast, steadfast. She remained steadfast in her pursuit of a successful acting career. Stoic, stoic. He remained stoic as the doctor performed the operation. Symmetry, symmetry. This house was designed with perfect symmetry. The story. Prince Tamino raced across the barren wasteland with a vicious, enormous serpent hot on his heels. "Someone help me, or I'm finished!" he cried as he leapt from one boulder to the next in a desperate attempt to escape his venomous pursuer. "It's gaining on me! Oh gods, protect me!" But assistance did not arrive before the monstrous serpent wrapped its enormous body around him and began its death squeeze. He tried to cry out one last time, but there wasn't enough air in his lungs to produce more than a squeak. The poor prince fainted under the soulless glare of the beast's yellow eyes. But just as the snake was about to make the killing strike, 3 supernatural maidens appeared in the sky above. They used their power to strangle the murderous snake to death. Thus, Tamino was saved. "Triumph!" shouted the tallest maiden. "We kicked its scaly butt," declared the shortest maiden. "He's kind of cute," mused the middle maiden aloud as she gazed upon the unconscious prince. The 3 maidens stood in awe of the handsome young man they had just rescued. "I think our mistress would be very interested in this gentleman," said the tallest maiden. "He would fit her plan nicely," said the middle maiden. "I suppose we should go tell her about this," said the shortest maiden. All three maidens looked at one another for a few seconds before the tallest one said, "Since I'm the leader, I think I should stay while you two inform the queen." The middle maiden was quick to object and said, "Hold on. If you're the leader, then it's you who should go. I'll stay here and help the poor lad when he awakes." The shortest maiden wagged her finger at her sister and protested, "Oh, no, you don't. I'm going to be the one he sees when he wakes up." The three maidens then began squabbling and scuffling over who got to nurse the attractive young man back to health. Eventually, the tallest maiden came to her senses. "We all will tell the queen, and we all will nurse this piece of beefcake back to health, okay?" And so all three maidens left to inform their mistress, the queen of the night, that they had found the perfect male specimen. A few moments later, Tamino rubbed his eyes as he regained consciousness. "What happened?" he muttered as he checked himself for injuries. Finding none, he turned his attention to the now dead serpent, which lay close beside him. "It's a miracle!" he exclaimed. "What's a miracle?" asked a chirpy voice from behind him. Tamino spun around and was surprised to see a bulgy-eyed man wearing a chicken costume. "What on earth are you?" he asked. The strange man cocked his head to one side and said, "I'm a bird catcher, of course." Tamino stood up and asked, "What are you doing all the way out here? There aren't any birds for miles." The strange man cocked his head to the other side and replied, "That's just evidence of how good I am." He then laughed, an odd, clucky laugh, as his eyes drifted in opposite directions. Tamino looked back at the dead serpent and said, "Well, whoever you are, I'm grateful for your help. I wouldn't have survived another second against this monster." The birdman hopped forward to get a good look at the snake. He whistled musically and said, "My name's Papageno, and there's no need to thank me. I was just doing what all heroes do." The strange birdman then stood proudly with his chest puffing out and shook Tamino's hand vigorously. A sudden flash of light appeared in the sky, causing the birdman to leap behind Tamino in fear. "Fear not," declared the three maidens as they floated down to the ground, "for we are the servants of the Queen of the Night, and we are here to help you." Prince Tamino, pleased but confused to see these three angelic figures, replied, "Thank you, but your help isn't necessary. Thanks to Papageno, things are under control." The three maidens turned their sharp eyes toward Papageno, who sheepishly stood up and waved. "What did he do to help you?" asked the tallest maiden. Tamino slapped his feathery savior on the shoulder and announced, "He saved me from this vile beast, and for that I am forever in his debt." The three maidens then surrounded the quivering Papageno. "Did you really kill this monster all by yourself?" asked the shortest maiden as she stared daggers at the birdman. Papageno, in order to maintain his new and accidental reputation as a hero, puffed out his chest and answered, "Yes, I did." The middle maiden stepped closer and said, "Then I suppose you'd like a reward, right?" Papageno excitedly nodded his head. Using her magic, the tallest maiden manifested a basket and shoved it into Papageno's arms and said, "Have a hero's meal on us." Papageno looked inside the basket and was disappointed to find some rocks instead of bread rolls. "And here's my gift," growled the shortest maiden as she slapped a muzzle over Papageno's mouth. With the birdman muted, the three maidens turned their attention to Prince Tamino. "We are your true protectors, dear prince," said the tallest maiden. "And we serve the great and powerful Queen of the Night," added the middle maiden. "And she has a mission for you," said the shortest maiden as she flicked her wand to produce a three-dimensional image of a beautiful princess. "Wow! Who is she?" asked Tamino. "Ugh," muttered the middle maiden. "Why do they always fall head over heels for the princess and not me?" The tallest maiden quickly spoke up to cover up her sister's comment and said, "She is Pamina, the daughter of the Queen of the Night. If you rescue her from the palace of the evil Sarastro, the queen will let you marry her." Tamino stared in wonder for a few seconds before he replied, "A prince saving a princess from an evil lord's palace? Who ever heard of such a thing?" The tallest maiden laughed and said, "Trust us, joy and glory can both be yours if you accept this mission." Prince Tamino vowed that he would rescue the princess or die trying. "Good," said the tallest maiden as the image of the princess evaporated. "Now that you have agreed to take on this quest, the queen wishes to personally hand you a tool that you will find most useful." As soon as she finished speaking, the sky suddenly turned as dark as night. Tamino gazed in wonder at the sparkling stars above and saw one that looked like it was rapidly increasing in size. It took a few seconds for him to realize that the star wasn't getting bigger, but closer. "All hail the Queen of the Night!" cried the three maidens. Tamino almost fell backwards as a shooting star came roaring down to earth. He thought it was going to blast him and everyone else away. But instead of crashing into the ground, the star suddenly slowed down and drifted gently down in front of him. "Have no fear, my dear boy," announced the queen sweetly. Prince Tamino stood up firmly, but fear and awe were visible in his eyes. "I am at your service, your majesty," said Tamino with a gentle bow. The Queen of the Night smiled and said, "My sorely afflicted heart was gladdened to hear you accept this quest." She handed him a golden flute and said, "Use this when you enter Sarastro's castle. It will protect you." Tamino solemnly accepted the flute and asked who Sarastro was. "He is a demon," moaned the queen, "who has kidnapped my poor daughter. Only a brave and gullible, innocent prince can save her." Prince Tamino reiterated his vow and asked that Papageno be allowed to accompany him. "Really?" asked the queen incredulously. "You want to take Birdbrain with you?" Tamino nodded and replied, "Doesn't every hero need a boon companion to provide some comic relief?" The queen rolled her eyes and said, "Yeah, sure, you can take him with you." And with a flick of her hand, she released Papageno from his muzzle. "Oh!" exclaimed the birdman merrily, "Papageno can chatter again." The shortest maiden shook her fist at him and warned him never to lie again. Papageno shrunk a little and crossed his heart. "Now that everything's settled," said the queen, "we'll be off. We'll see you again in Act 2. Good luck!" The three magical maidens and their queen then disappeared back into the sky. Prince Tamino and Papageno headed toward the eastern mountains, where Papageno claimed to know the location of Sarastro's castle. After traveling for a couple of days, Tamino asked his companion, "Are you sure you know where you're going?" Papageno laughed and replied, "Of course, Papageno knows this area like the back of his hand." As soon as he finished his sentence, Papageno stopped dead in his tracks and pointed at something in front of him. "What the heck is that?" he cried. Tamino looked forward and saw 3 rough boulders blocking the road. "Who put these here?" wondered Tamino aloud. He walked forward to examine them. As soon as he touched one of the boulders, all 3 began to shake and shiver. "Eep!" cried Papageno as he hid behind his traveling companion. The pair of travelers watched in wonder as the 3 stones crumbled, revealing 3 boys, who appeared to be no older than 10 years. The first boy said, "We are 3 lads, gentle, fair, and wise. We were sent by the Queen of the Night to guide you to the castle." Papageno stepped out from his hiding place and confidently declared, "I told you we were on the right track." The second boy stepped forward and declared, "This path leads you to your goal." Then the third boy stepped forward and said, "But be warned, O Prince. You may only succeed in walking this path by being steadfast, silent, and stoic. Tamino smiled and replied, "That sounds easy enough. Please lead the way." After several hours of uphill hiking, the 5 travelers arrived at the gates of Sarastro's mountaintop fortress. Tamino marveled at the perfect symmetry of its massive stone blocks and its 3 beautifully crafted doorways. "Remember, be steadfast, silent, and stoic," warned the 3 lads before they walked away. "Wait!" shouted Tamino. "Which gate should I use?" But the boys did not answer. Tamino and Papageno stood there for a few minutes, scratching their heads as they tried to make sense of the symbols carved on each of the doors. Above the right-hand gate was carved, in rectilinear letters, the word "Reason." On the massive wooden doors were carved various geometric shapes, with 2 handles that resembled a builder's plumb and level. "I know exactly which door to use," declared Papageno as he marched with excessive confidence toward the right-hand door. But as soon as he touched the door handle, a large stone block fell from the ceiling, bonking him on the head. Papageno fell flat on his back, and his eyes rolled around in their sockets. "I don't think it's that one," remarked Tamino. Above the left-hand gate was carved, in elegant green filigree, the word "Nature." Tamino examined the doors and saw images of stars and a crescent moon above a field of trees and flowers. The door handles appeared to be roughly hewn branches. Papageno stood up and announced that he had discovered the secret of this door. "All one needs to do, sir, is to pull the branch like this," said the Birdman as he yanked the door handle to the left. Tamino was temporarily blinded by a bolt of lightning that shot out of the ceiling, striking Papageno in the buttocks. The prince couldn't help but laugh as his friend excitedly rubbed his behind in the dirt in order to put out the flames that had sprung up on his pants. "I guess that just leaves the middle gate," commented Tamino. Above the middle gate was carved, in handsome letters, the word "Wisdom." On the doors, the prince could see the image of 3 angels climbing a ladder, flanked by columns. Tamino stepped forward, took a deep breath, and knocked 3 times. This time, no disaster fell from above. The doors slowly creaked open, revealing a wizened old man with a long white beard. "You have chosen wisely," croaked the old man. "May I enter?" asked Tamino politely. "You may enter if you answer 3 questions," replied the elderly doorman. "First, what is your name?" Tamino introduced himself and Papageno. The old man nodded and asked his second question. "What is your quest?" Before Tamino could answer, Papageno rushed forward and blurted, "To find the Holy Grail!" Tamino slapped him across the mouth and warned him to be silent. "I must apologize for my friend. He's an idiot," Tamino said to the doorman apologetically. "We're actually here to rescue Princess Pamina." The old man then asked his final question. "Who has sent you?" Tamino held his hand over Papageno's mouth to keep him quiet while he answered. "The Queen of the Night." The old man's eyes widened and he took a deep breath. "Whatever that sorceress has told you," he warned, "don't believe it. She is wily and deceptive." The old man then stepped aside to allow the pair to enter. Pamina crept softly down the hallway of her father's palace. On her right shoulder rested a stick with a small bundle of personal effects tied to the end. She nervously looked over her left shoulder as she approached an intersection with another hallway. "I hope that creepy Monostatos doesn't show up. I hate that guy," she thought to herself. Unfortunately for her, that's exactly who appeared in front of her when she turned the corner. "Oh, Monostatos, what a pleasure meeting you here," said the princess awkwardly. Monostatos glared at her with narrow eyes and said, "Where do you think you're going?" Pamina mumbled several excuses as she slowly backed away. "Well, gotta go, see ya." But the princess was prevented from fleeing by the firm grip of her father's chief steward. "You ain't going anywhere," growled Monostatos. "Let go of me, you creep. My father will have your head if he catches you touching me again," retorted Pamina. Monostatos licked his fat lips as he pulled Pamina closer. "I'll teach you how to behave, princess," he chuckled. The sound of Sarastro's deep, commanding voice caused both the captive and captor to freeze. "Let my daughter go," boomed Sarastro. Monostatos bowed obsequiously while Pamina looked at her father with a sheepish expression on her face. "I caught her trying to escape, your majesty," said Monostatos. Sarastro turned his eyes on the princess. "I'm sorry, Papa, but I miss Mom," said Pamina apologetically. "And this weirdo keeps leering at me," she added disgustedly. "Pamina," began Sarastro as he gently drew his daughter closer to him, "I know you miss your mother, but the restraining order is still in place. She could be arrested for just being near you." Pamina's heart softened and her eyes began to water. "Oh, Papa, why did you two have to get a divorce?" Sarastro softly patted his daughter's back as he gave her a comforting hug. "You'll understand when you're older," he told her. This warm scene was interrupted by the arrival of the doorman from the previous scene, who announced the arrival of Prince Tamino and Papageno. Pamina's heart skipped a beat when she saw the handsome prince, and she nervously bit her lip to prevent herself from blurting out, "What a hunk!" Tamino also felt the sudden, warm, electrical feeling of romantic love when he locked eyes with Pamina. "Am I dreaming?" he thought. Monostatos saw what was happening and stood between the two lovebirds. "What are you looking at?" growled the ugly servant. Sarastro loudly cleared his throat to get everyone's attention. "Prince Tamino," he said in his most commanding voice, "if you wish to stay in my house, you and your friend must be purified." Tamino bowed and said, "I will do as you command, your majesty, but please tell me how we might be purified." Sarastro answered, "Only by successfully passing 3 ordeals may you prove yourself worthy." Monostatos interrupted by crying, "Your majesty, you can't be serious. You can't let this impudent dog in here." Sarastro glared at his servant angrily and bellowed, "Silence!" Turning his gaze back to Tamino and Papageno, he said, "Do you both wish to be admitted to the eternal fraternity of wisdom?" Tamino nodded his head to indicate yes, but Papageno shook his head to indicate no. But after a sharp jab from his companion, Papageno changed his mind and nodded along with Tamino. Sarastro smiled and said, "You may follow my doorman to the Temple of Wisdom to begin your pre-ordeal ritual." Tamino and Papageno both bowed and thanked their host. As he left the hallway, Tamino waved and gave a wink to the beautiful Pamina, who returned the affectionate gesture. Monostatos was incensed, but he bit his tongue and waited for the pair of travelers to leave before saying something. "Your Majesty," began the servant, "I have enforced your rules by preventing the escape of the princess. Have I not served you well?" Sarastro looked at his servant coldly and said, "I suppose you'd like a reward, wouldn't you?" Monostatos bowed and replied, "If it pleases you, your majesty." Sarastro called for his bodyguard and said, "Very well. Your reward shall be 70 lashes with the cane. Jeff, take this brute to the dungeon." Monostatos was too shocked for words. He could only look up at his master with pleading eyes as the bodyguard escorted him away. The questions. Number 1. Who rescued Tamino from the deadly serpent? A. Papageno. B. 3 magic maidens. C. Sarastro. D. Superman. The answer is B. 3 magic maidens. Question 2. Where can Tamino find Princess Pamina? A. Costco. B. Sarastro's castle. C. The Queen of Nights palace. D. 612 Wharf Avenue. The answer is B. Sarastro's castle. Question 3. Which was the correct door? A. The right-hand door. B. The left-hand door. C. The middle door. D. The more door. The answer is C. The middle door. Question 4. What must Tamino and Papageno do next? A. Pass 3 ordeals. B. Pass the final exam. C. Collect a lot of candy. D. Find the Holy Grail. The answer is A. Pass 3 ordeals.